Are you going to be that? Oh, okay. You can, so you can get it out. That's cool. Welcome, y'all. Because you should bring it up. So, maybe we're just. Yeah. So,
Hey, Gwen, I just thought of one more thing. On my desktop is one of those 23.
In the room, which is awesome, which is really cool. Welcome to Awesome Women's Investing Group. For those of you who are here for the first time, I'll just really kind of quickly go through like what we do and what our backstory is. So in 2011, my friend Michelle went, oh, and I'm Sarah, by the way. Sarah, I sent the emails. So back in 2011, my friend Michelle and I were meeting over here for coffee, and we ended up spending 3 hours talking about like a rebalancing question she had about her 401k. And after the meeting, she and I looked at each other and she's like, you know, I think there are other women in Austin who would want to do something like this. Just get together and talk about money. So, all right, well, what do you have in mind? And so she signed us up on Meetup. We came up with the super generic name, Austin Women's Investing Group. And we started having monthly meetings. And so that was in 2011. Now we're, it's 2013, almost 2014. We've had a meeting almost every month since then.
It's 2023.
What did I say?
2013.
Gosh, 23.
That's from the past. 2013.
When I get out of the time warp,
Decade.
So when oh, now I'm totally lost my train.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a bunch of meetings. Long story short, still a group of women that get together in rooms and talk about money and finance and investing. We sometimes just have like roundtable discussions. Like today, we're having kind of a topic led by an expert, Kacie Swartz, who's a certified financial planner. She's going to lead us through today's topic. But you know, really like this, the spirit is always the same, whether we're online or whether we're in person here or whether we're hybrid, which is like we're here to really learn from each other. Like amazing connections are made by, you know, talking to the woman across from you or next to you. So the whole point of this is for it to be interactive, right? I know Gwen will be kind of keeping an eye on the chat for the people online. Like as questions come up, ask them, right? And in the room, as questions come up, ask them, because it's more conversational than lecture. So yeah, the whole point of this is to share what you know. And when you have a question, please, please, please ask it, because as we all know, you are not the only person with the question. So we kind of need, you know, we need people to be out there kind of, you know, a little bit of vulnerability and ask the question, even if you don't preface it with, I know this is a dumb question, or this might be a dumb question. There are no dumb questions, especially in investing, finance, money. That's what we're all here for. Before each meeting, when we were in person, and now that we're in person again, we go around the room just with a quick introduction, your name, what you do during the day, how you found the group, and what you're hoping to learn. So we'll do that in a minute. But before we do that, I'll kind of give our disclosures that I've been giving every month since 2011, which are nothing in this room is intended to be investing advice. If you have like a question that you want personalized advice on, talk to an expert. Kacie and myself are both investing professionals. So we do this during the day, but when we're here, we're just kind of giving opinions and like leading a discussion. So if you need personalized advice, please ask it. Legal advice, tax advice, or financial advice. You've never, ever, ever had a problem or anything close to a problem in the group and don't anticipate it. So feel compelled to say that every time. So I don't know, without further ado, did I cover basically everything once I got in the right decade? Now we're 2023. We're all here. Awesome. Teresa, do you mind starting?
Sure. Okay. I'm Teresa Dragonberg, and I found the Awesome Women's Group on Meetup maybe about 5 years ago. And I've been an investor since pre-internet. I took Social Security early during the pandemic, and I don't do much. I sell things online, and kind of semi-retired. I still do odd jobs here. That's it.
And Teresa's also led a couple meetings
Yeah.
too for that.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
My name is Susan. I found this on Meetup about the same time I met Teresa. We became very good friends. So thank you. And Sarah's been a godsend and has helped me through some very dark times. I thought I knew who I was working with and found out there was a reality versus my thinking of who they were and what they were doing with funds that should have been going in one direction, which were actually going in the wrong direction. So we're able to, via Sarah and Teresa's help, remove myself from that bad situation and then actually do the investing on my own. And with your great classes that you led at UT, I took a couple of those classes on stocks. I love my stocks. Yeah, so it's been fun to be able to take control of your own destiny, where a lot of people just don't know what they have or where they, and that's where I was 10 years ago. So, yeah. So thank you.
Welcome back, we're 15%.
I work in a investing mortgage company, and I've been investing last year, also last year. I have a question. So I'm like looking at my Roth IRA and trying to like, bring the funds everywhere, like you're saying. Is there like a group that specifically does that, or is it just like classes?
Sometimes we've done.
We certainly have done sessions on that. Do you want to kind of, okay, well, we could do that.
Maybe like early 2024, we can see. if we can-
Absolutely. This is your personal Roth or the one through work?
Well, both.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I mean, I love all these sessions, like everything's very relevant, but that's just something I'm working on, like what you're saying, like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Are
Are you on the Facebook group?
No, I don't.
No, there's a private Facebook group. There's a private Facebook group and also a YouTube channel where we were recording all of these, or have been recording as many things as we can. I'm trying to think if there's a recording. We'll get you what you need. Figure that out. Really good question. Welcome back.
I'm Rachel. I got the Austin Investment Group. Other lovely to work with their activity. They sort of like one with the board side of things, but they were wanting to do investing. We took a lot of authority through, and then I also am a real estate agent. And so I noticed a lot of real estate questions being asked in the group. So like I thought I could just comment about it. Just also help do research as well.
Preview, we might be firing up a kind of a little offshoot of Austin's investing group on real estate investing. So stay tuned.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily, and I ended up here as I knew Sarah through our daughters and neighborhood, but I saw the topic for today's session, and I'm currently working on transitioning from being employed at a large company to being self-employed, and thought it would be good to be thinking about what I need to make sure is covered, because it's not just divided for me.
Excellent perspective. Thank you.
I'm Lori, and I'm one of the co-advisors, and I also really like real estate, but not all.
Lori's also led a bunch of topics for us. So, and by the way, we're volunteer led and volunteer run. So if you want to volunteer to lead a group,
Or if you want
just
to
get-
be on a panel,
Yeah.
if there's like a topic you want to discuss, you can let us know, and then we'll see on the people. You don't have to lead it all.
awesome. Thank you.
I'm Cecile. I'm a care integration consultant, and I found out about this. This is my first time here today because my friend Leora, and but funnily enough, Sarah and I need to work together. So this is weird.
Yeah. It's like how I did, right?
That's awesome.
Keep up. Yeah.
Yeah.
More than
So funny.
So my name is Leora Pearson. I'm a software engineer at the same company with our boys for a day. And I'm really into personal finance. My mom's a CPA and has a practice and everything. And so I was just looking for things of interest on Meetup. Found this group and attended the last person session pre-COVID here.
Yeah.
Had a great chat with Sarah afterwards. So.
Awesome. It's good to see you.
I'm Gwen. During the day, I work with Sarah and Kacie as their assistant at Black Barn. That's how I found the group. But I hope that even if I didn't know you or didn't work for you, that I would have found my way here anyway, because it's always just super fun, like seeing the different backgrounds and levels of experience that people bring, and then just how cool the conversation becomes because of all these different perspectives. So yeah, excited to learn today.
Sounds great. And we'll launch. Case, I'll let you take over.
All right. Hey, everybody. I am Kacie Swartz, and I joined the group about 10 years ago, just to get insurance. When I first moved to Austin, and I was trying to meet people and just trying to get to know like what's going on in town. I have been a financial professional for like 23 years now. But when I first moved to Austin, I still needed to grow my network. And I went to a session at Monkey Nest. Did anybody go back when it was still at Monkey Nest sometime?
Oh, man. I think that was the only one we ever had.
Oh, what? Well, anyway, it was all about angel investing, which is like investing before companies go public or just like crazy ideas. And there was a dude there who was trying to convince us all to buy his particular cryptocurrency.
Oh my God.
And I was just looking at Sarah like, what? Have you got me into? And then we became friends after that. And then we just like lived parallel lives for 10 years until earlier in 2023, I made a big career change and left my old firm and joined Sarah at Black Barn. So I am a certified financial planner. I am a certified investment management analyst. So I know all of the math answers to all the questions, but I care more about like the what feels right answers. So that's the certified financial planner side. Today we're talking about employee benefits because of so much free money is like just out there in your employee brochure. So for anybody who has a corporate job or who has one of those brochures, I wanted to do it in October because it feels like this time of year is one of those times of year that they always send you those brochures, right? The other thing that's happening right now is Medicare open enrollment. This is not about Medicare. I know general things about Medicare open enrollment, but the short answer is get an insurance specialist. They get paid by the insurance companies. So that's the only thing I know about that.
I know.
Okay.
If you really think that's the right way to figure out.
Yes. Yeah. So the Medicare insurance, the people who are like insurance agents for Medicare supplemental plans, because they do get paid by the carriers, they're pretty agnostic as to what you do because all of the different Medicare plans are all the same thing, you know, plan G, plan H, whatever. So what they're going to do is just run the numbers for you and figure out based on your zip code, which one's the cheaper plan if you have this or that medicine or this or that like doctor visit, because you kind of like get cheaper plans based on what everybody else in your area does. So, and if you are in a two-person household, you and your partner may have completely different plans based on what medicines each of you take. So.
One reason I was asking, I didn't know how much they might skew towards where they work.
But see, they're like a travel agent kind of a thing. Like they don't really care if you fly American or United. They just want to sell you a ticket. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of how they are. Like Blue Cross or Aetna or whatever. It doesn't matter.
And we've had Michelle by this before, right? Who came in and I think she at least twice has done Medicare talks.
She does a lot of consultations too. She's
right.
Really
she will talk to, I mean, if you've met Michelle, like you know, she will talk to anyone, anywhere about anything Medicare related. So like for you or your parents or people that you know where that might be on top of mind, she's a good resource for.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I made a huge mistake and registered for a Medicare conversation online and gave them my phone number. And I have literally been receiving 90 phone calls a day since October. And this year it was the 18th because that was a Monday. So like since Medicare open enrollment started, it's just nonstop. luckily, I still have a New Mexico phone number, and they all pretend to have your zip code, your area code. So I get 1,505s, and I just block. But anyway, corporate world. Okay. Next slide, please.
Sorry. Where? There we go.
Okay. So yeah, introduction and disclosures. Just want to make sure everybody knows that we're here for educational purposes. We're not trying to tell you anything, and we're not trying to recommend anything in particular, right? Then we're going to go through the basics. I want to hit retirement savings, all the different insurances, like stock options and like ways to buy stock of your company in a corporate setting. And then definitely lots of participation. I think one of the things you said was that this is supposed to be a conversation rather than a lecture, which I really want to do. So when you guys get those PDF things at a new job, what is the first thing you're looking for? Anybody? Medical? Yeah. Right. Who is signing up dependents? Anybody? Dependents, like kids or spouses or anything? Okay, we're ready whenever you are, Gwen. Okay, that's me. We're good. Oh yeah, my favorite benefit is the dependent savings account.
Okay.
I know. I get really excited about the dependent care flex savings account. Yeah, this is all the stuff Sarah already said. Basically, don't sue us. Okay, so the main thing that I want to focus on is when you are looking at new jobs, or when you're looking at raises, or when you're looking at moving forward in your career in general, is the difference between cash compensation and non-cash compensation, right? So frequently bosses will say, oh, we can't afford to give you a raise, wah, wah, wah. Okay, what can you give me that doesn't cost cash money, right? Can you give me more stock? Can you give me, can you make a match to my dependent care FSA? Like, what can they do for you, right? Remember, when you get that brochure PDF, the window is usually like 7 days. It's outrageously short. And it really stinks because you kind of have to look at it pretty thoroughly. One of the things that your financial advisor should do with you is they should make a short like Zoom meeting with you, 15, 30 minutes, to look through that brochure together, or look at your HR website and just make sure that you've got what you want. So for example, one of my least favorite stories, I used to work with a guy who was a pretty big wig executive dude, but he had a real Midwestern heart. And so when he looked at his brochure of benefits, he saw that you had to pay $40 a month for long-term disability. So he said no. Even though this gentleman was making big six figures, sole support for his whole family, he turned down the long-term disability. And it was like 3 times salary. So I was just like, oh, what are you doing? So I fixed it. We fixed it. Luckily, he had a life event early in the following year where they had a new baby. So when you have a life event, new baby, divorce, change of job, you get to like reevaluate your benefits. So if you ever screw things up, have a baby really soon. So that's when you can change your benefits. And then of course, during the annual enrollment. Okay, the first and easiest is the retirement savings. So for most of us, it's going to be a 401k. I put 457s and 403bs in for those folks who work either in nonprofits or education. So does that apply to anybody? Or the internet? Anybody on the internet? Does that apply to you guys?
We'll wait for the.
Okay. Anybody in here?
Oh, yes, one person who works at UT.
Okay. Even at UT is a little bit complicated because sometimes you can do a 403b and a 457. We can talk about that later. But the short version is, when you are doing this, I've capitalized the E part because there's different components, right? Most of us kind of know this intuitively. I'm overdoing it because I want you to see that there are contribution limits as an employee, and it's totally separate from what you do as an individual person. So if you have your own Roth IRA at whatever custodian you have it, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, whatever, that totally doesn't count. This is just at work. The amount you contribute can usually be changed anytime during the year if you're doing one of these types of corporate plans. And then the pre or post-tax is actually usually called Roth, but I just wanted to point it out that that's money that if you put it into the 401k, you're paying taxes on it before you put it in there, right? And when do you choose that? So let's pause for a second again. Who's doing a Roth contribution to their 401ks? Nice. Anybody? Okay, why did you choose that? Simplicity, nice. Same. The other awesome thing about doing your 401k contribution as a Roth contribution is that you are putting it in, you are paying the taxes in today's dollars because you know what today's dollars are. What I have heard from CPAs is that most likely, when you look at the historic record of taxes, we are in a low period, like the 12%, the 22%, those are pretty historic lows. So if you're gambling, what are taxes going to be when you retire? If that's 20, 30, 40 years from now, it's a good gamble that it's going to be higher.
That's exactly what Tessa says on the call. She says she does that, and it's to hedge bets against potential higher rates in retirement.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that standard? Like, choose if it's Roth or not? Or
It is pretty standard unless you're at a really small company. If you're at a medium to bigger company, they're almost always going to have that as an option. But it's a good question because the Roth 401k was only invented about 15 years ago. So it did take a while to trickle down, and it's not the most commonly known thing.
And I think they just, in one of the more recent tax overhauls, they gave incentives to employers to offer for Roth option. So it's more recent than like a traditional 401k.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
In Roth-wise, if you're doing a Roth for your employer, you can't do a Roth on your own.
Great question, still can, absolutely. They're totally separate things. So again, for the internet, you guys, what we just said is even if you choose the Roth 401k, you still can do a Roth IRA. They're two separate streets.
Income limit.
Right?
Income limit.
Well, we'll get to that with the actors.
I was gonna say, when I was self-employed and I had a traditional IRA and a Roth, so I would split them. Whatever I need for tax deduction, put in my traditional, then the rest of the Roth.
Well, that's another complication that I want to make sure we get to later, but that's a really good point. So we're going to get to it, what the total limit is amongst all of these contributions.
Okay.
Right now, I think it's 66,000 for 2023.
Kacie, I just want to elaborate that when I said simplicity, what I meant is I want to know how much money I have, like what the worth is when I'm thinking about accessing it. So
That's such a good point.
That's one of my rules of how I manage my financial simplicity.
Yeah.
It's both math of like if I took a withdrawal and paid the taxes, then I guess.
Yeah. Well, and
because
you
the
were
variability thing too, it's like you literally don't actually know what your wealth is after. And I was like, I just want to know.
well, and again, for simplicity's sake, remember that if you're doing a Roth contribution, it's post-tax dollars, which means that the contribution itself can be removed without penalty before age 59. The growth cannot. That has to stay in there or you'll pay a penalty. It's not like the biggest thing in the world, but you're going to pay a penalty. So you're absolutely right. It gives you a little bit more flexibility if you're seeking to be like financially independent, retire early, or you're going to use it as a down payment on a house or whatever, right? So there's a lot of benefits to going with the Roth 401k. The reason that you would not do that is when you're a high earner. If you are in the 32% bracket and above, if that's your highest bracket, which I believe on that key financial data, can you pull that up for us? I think that's like 300,000 for a couple, and I don't know. I'm making numbers up.
182 to 231
Yeah,
Nice.
there's a higher than 30.
at 32%. I just took, this is May 2023, they just posted.
higher one.
Sorry.
That is at school.
Yeah, there's a 37, and then there's an adjustment even above that. So if we can move up here. So here's the 32. So if your income as a single person right here is over 182, the dollars you earn above that limit are being taxed at 32% and then higher. So if you're a really high earner, it's worth it to get that tax deduction. If you could put 30 grand away, if you're over 50 years old, that's what you could put away. If you're below 50, it's 22.5. Yeah. Yeah. And that's straight up like you earned $1.35 on it because you're not paying tax on it, right? And then joint, the 32 starts at 364 and then gets worse. So that's when I would say do the traditional. I think it's worth it. But for everybody else, I think the Roth is really where it's at. Thoughts or questions? Yeah, I think so too. And another thing is your employer contribution is almost always going to be pre-tax. So most of the time, the boss, they want to do a pre-tax because they get to take the deduction. So they're never going to do the Roth. So you're really growing both of those piles of money if you get a match. Does anybody not get a match who has a corporate plan but doesn't get a match? Do you guys know what your match is?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's really nice.
Ours is 3.
3. The biggest one I've heard is Facebook. I think Facebook will match up to the 22,000 that you put away. It's outrageous.
Wow.
I was teaching my classes PT. There were a couple new petroleum engineers who would get matched 3 times what they put in.
What?
Why? Matches.
Yeah, they're crazy.
I feel like our benefits like written something's like 3 and that's 6%.
Yeah, that's probably right.
It's 3
And then there's the $66,000 limit hanging over the whole thing. So if you did have like a baller salary and somehow they said 6%, but it would hit over the 66,000, they can't do that.
What,
But anyway,
we have a question. What's considered a good match?
3%. Anything less than 3% is weird. There's a problem.
Would there be a reason to not take the match?
No. Always put at least 3%. Like always get your match. Get that match, baby. Yes, it's free money. So when you look at your cash compensation, if you earn $100,000 and they're going to give you 3% of your earnings, if you will put money away for the future, freaking do it. It's going to save you so much money.
Yeah.
Do it. And the employer match is going to follow whatever you chose. So if in my website I chose, I'm going to put all my money in the Vanguard 500 fund, that's what the employer match will do. It's just going to follow whatever you choose. If you say I'm going to do 14 different choices and I'm going to fiddle with it, they'll do the same thing. Do you guys have questions about that part?
But for people who are like self-employed, don't have match options, things like that, what would you recommend they do to get that extra little like boost?
Do you have employees? Solo 401k. A solo 401k is super easy to open. You can open it at all of these different custodians, Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, whoever. You are now your own employee, your own boss. You can do both.
Trying that. Does that mean I can put extra in versus just like that little, because like basic?
Yes.
Because what's the basic amount that you can put in or like that?
In a traditional Roth account is $6,500.
Okay, so that means I can put 12.
You could do $22,500 as your own employee. You could do 25% of your net profit as your own boss. Over here in your traditional Roth account, you could do another $6,500.
Wow, okay.
I don't know what your salary is. You're probably out of money, but you could do all of these things.
Really?
Absolutely. The only caveat is if you do a solo 401k, most of the custodians don't offer a Roth. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's totally worth it. Because in this make-believe scenario, you're earning a ton of money because you're doing $22,500 here, you're doing 25% here, up to $66,000. The only person I know who can do that is a lady who wrote a book. She's getting a whole lot of royalties. And so she can afford to do both of these. So if you can't, no hard feelings. I know one person out of thousands of clients.
If you have variable income, like in an industry in Austin, which maybe is kind of, boom and busty, then there might be some years where you are able to max it out and other years where you can't.
Which is another great point. As the employee, you have to put the money in by the calendar year end, December 31. But that's the 22.5. So you can plan ahead for that, right? If you're in a boom and bust real estate industry. This part, as the boss, you have until tax filing deadline. So you're going to know a little bit more about how the year ended, right? Do I have 25? I mean, you can't put it in until you know your net profit.
Yeah.
So you got to do all of the math before you can do it. And then if you have the cash sitting around, you're like, okay, this is a great idea. Up to 25%, right? You could put away like 2%. And unlike some of the other plans, like a Simple or any of the other ones, it can be flexible by the year.
Yeah.
So you don't have to say, I'm always doing $3,000 a year. It could be if I have it and if I don't. If you have employees, you can't do it. Yes, ma'am.
So my husband and I are joint owners of the LLC. Can I still do a solo 401k?
Yes.
Okay.
Because a husband doesn't count.
Okay.
Spouses don't count. It is. We're in a safe space here. Any spouses, if you file your taxes jointly, in the eyes of the IRS, you're one thing. So
Okay.
you both could do it, actually.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if we had a great year, we could actually max out.
It's definitely worth opening one for both of you.
Yeah.
Because to contribute for calendar year 23, they have to be opened, I think, by October 31 of 23.
Okay.
We could double check the deadline on that.
It's on that sheet. You'll be able to check it after.
Okay, cool.
It's on the financial data sheet. But,
Yeah. So if you wanted to do it for this year, definitely get one open. And if you can't do it, no big deal, right? It's not the worst thing in the world. The other thing about employees, if you think you'll add employees, just make them 1099 employees. And then they can do the same thing. It's only W-2 employees that make it so that you're not a solo anymore. You're a business. If you have employees and you want to do a 401k in a really small company, it's kind of expensive. And now you have to meet ERISA guidelines. So there's a lot of regulations.
Would you choose a Simple or a SEP instead for that particular purposes?
I mean, I would do a SEP. Yeah. But it doesn't.
But other people have chosen Simple.
Oh, okay.
We have five employees.
Okay.
So we did Simple.
Hey, Kacie, you mentioned that we're gonna hit backdoor
Yeah.
stuff later. Okay.
Yeah, if that's cool with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you are at a tech company, you may even have the post-tax contribution. So remember I mentioned that $66,000 cap? If you've done these two and you still have some wiggle room, let's say that accumulated up to let's say 33,000 and you have $30,000 burning a hole in your pocket, you can do this. This is not always available. You have to read your 401k documentation, but if you can do this, it's almost always, well, it is always, it's going to be after tax, which means it's like Roth, but it doesn't have the benefits of Roth if you try to take it out, unless, asterisk, they allow for the mega backdoor conversion. Most tech companies do. If you're on your Fidelity website, do you guys have net benefits? Who do you have? So if you're on that net benefits website, when you look at your contributions, look at the bottom of the page and it'll say post-tax. And then there'll be a little radio button. Do you want to convert? And you say yes, which we could always mess with later. I know that Amazon, Apple, can't remember the rest of them, but really big companies, they're almost all doing this because as we have seen post-pandemic, it is a buyer's market out there for employees. So they're all offering this kind of thing. It's no skin off their nose. So they just have done the work now to offer them.
And that's a tax deferred account?
No,
That's just after-
this would be totally post-tax. So it's not tax deferred, but if you are able to do the conversion over here to the Roth,
Oh, okay.
then those dollars now become Roth because you didn't get any deduction when you made that pretend $30,000 contribution. So you're not like creating a tax event by converting it to Roth. You're just moving it into the silo that's called tax-free.
Okay, it's tax-free. Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that visual work for everybody? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, great. Internet, what do you think?
We do have a question. Tessa's asking, how do you think about the trade-off between tax benefits and the restrictions that come with these plans? For example, wanting to retire earlier before Medicare kicks in.
I think it's worth it. And this is a personal opinion. If you're a high earner, I think this is the lowest hanging fruit. This is the simplest. This is the most set it and forget it. I would encourage people, dial up your contribution to the highest point you can, get to the 22,500 limit as early in the year as you can, then take your foot off that brake. And like, you have more money for Christmas. You have more money in the market longer. And then when you separate service, you do a Roth conversion because now you're in a lower income bracket and you have this traditional IRA and you convert it. And so now you have those dollars for your FIRE lifestyle before Medicare. So that's my own personal point of view. If you're a super high earner, if you're already doing this as a Roth 401k, I don't see any reason to not do it because the contribution limit is so high. You can't do that as a Roth contribution in a traditional IRA. Remember, 6,500 for me as a regular person, 22,500 or even 30,000 if I'm the year I turn 50 plus. What's Tessa think?
Tessa says that's great advice. Appreciate it.
Yay, thanks, Tessa.
Thank you, Tessa, for the question.
Thank you for asking.
Oh, we do have one more question.
Yeah.
Mel is wondering, does reaching the limit early then forfeit any match after that?
Yeah, I have run into that from other people, but I don't think it does because if your contribution amount is equal or less than the 3% of your salary, I don't see how it would. Does anybody else? I mean, is anyone else picturing this math?
If you're front loading.
If you're front loading your contribution,
I feel like, so the thing is, if there's a salary raise mid-year,
yeah,
right, then your max, so instead of ours is 3 and 6, your max match increased during the year.
but they're still not going to contribute more than what you contribute, right?
No, but still 6% is higher. The match is still higher.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But still, if you're putting 22,500 away and they're saying they'll put it in 6% of your total salary, but they're going to divide it across all the paychecks, that's a really good argument. Yeah, that would be where I would say probably don't do it. Unless your salary is low enough that like it's not going to make a huge difference.
It doesn't make a difference, but if it's going to go up.
Yeah. So sometimes that I see that, and this is getting a little complicated, so sorry, everybody. But in situations where you have a pile of cash for whatever reason, you sold one of your rental houses, your great grandpa left you a pile of cash because he died, whatever it is, that's the year where you really dial up this contribution and you live off of your taxable income, this pile of cash. Because basically, if you picture all of your money as like, this is such an old reference now. Does anybody remember Blues Traveler?
Yes.
Okay, so pretend I have a harmonica vest on. Because I legit to this day love Blues Traveler. If I'm wearing a harmonica vest and every one of my harmonica sleeves is full of money, some of them are taxable and some of them are qualified or tax deferred traditional IRA money. Some of them are Roth, right? In this scenario, I'm trying to fill up my Roth pockets as much as possible. So if we all have cash flow ins and outs, but if I have this pile of taxable dollars that's not getting me anything special, then I use those harmonicas so that I can afford to put more money into my Roth pocket. Does that part make sense to everybody? This also works if you have a two-spouse situation where one makes very little income. It will destroy that person's income. Let's face it, usually it's the wife. I have a situation where I have two clients. One is like software sales or whatever, and she's a yoga teacher. So we destroy her income by putting it all into her 401k, and they live off of his income. So those are things that really work well in a two income situation.
Okay, so you're gonna come back to the text later when you talk about the backdoor.
A little bit, yeah. Do you have questions before then?
Yours other stuff covered.
Okay. Moving on. This is a really fun topic. We could go into this forever and ever, but I want to make sure that we catch the insurances because, like we said, that medical insurance, that's everybody's number one. Okay, so get all the free stuff. Here in a minute, we're going to look at a sample brochure from a company that none of you work at. So I just want to let you know that we're going to look at like a real one, but the health insurance, the biggest decision is, do I want regular PPO plan or high deductible health plan, HDHP? The high deductible health plan is the one with the HSA card. Questions? Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, great. Thank you for telling me. So PPO is what we all have had for generations. Like this is the regular one where you have a copay at the doctor and your monthly premium, and maybe like, let's say in my make-believe story, it's going to be $100. Okay. Your deductible or your out-of-pocket max is, let's say in this make-believe story, $3,000.
Yeah.
A high deductible health plan is called that because your monthly premium is lower. So if that one was 100, this one's going to be 50. Again, I'm making numbers up. The deductible part, instead of 3,000, it's going to be 5,000.
So if you, because like most people get home insurance through their company, for people who are self-employed, which one are we trying to?
I personally would choose this one. It gives you more flexibility, especially if you are on a financially independent path. Does anybody disagree with that? Any questions?
Which one do you point to?
I'm pointing towards high deductible. What do you guys?
It depends. If you're getting your health insurance from the ACA, then you get subsidies. So if you could go for a silver plan, you can afford the silver plan, you're better off because you get more subsidy beyond the premium assistance. So if that's affordable, go for the cheapest silver plan you can get with a respectable company. If not, then look at the high deductible plan.
The other thing is any types of unions or affinity groups that you might be eligible through. So I have done a lot of self-employed plans lately for attorneys, and the Texas Board of Attorneys, what am I thinking of? Guys, the ABA, what is the word? Anyway, the board. The attorneys group, whatever it's called, the thing that licenses them. There is a insurance option through that. At our company, we're getting our health insurance through the Financial Planning Association. Sometimes you can get it through an alumni group. Yeah. So look at everything in your life that you do, and it might be available. What'd you say?
She works in real estate, so I said there's definitely real estate.
There's gotta be, because so many of you are self-employed.
I've never talked about this. I think everyone's like,
What are you here for?
I think everyone thinks that they're like,
Yeah. Let's try and not use our husbands. If it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or just like, we're not gonna rely on
like we
them.
don't
We're gonna have a backup plan to husbands.
But if you think you're gonna use up your deductible, like why you'd still go for the high deductible one?
Because the health savings account.
Like that.
I love the health savings account.
Can you explain it a little bit?
Yes. The health savings account is a savings account that you can put $3,350 into as an individual, $7,350 or so. As a family, those numbers are going up again next year. It's like 4,000 this year in 24. Anyway, my point is tax deferred. So when you put those dollars away, let's pretend I put the $3,300 away. I'm a single person in this story. I put that $3,300 away, but I'm also a software salesperson making baller money. So I pay for everything out of pocket. I keep my $3,350 in this account. Then 10 years from now, I'm ready to retire on my golden yacht. All of the medical expenses I paid for out of pocket, I kept my receipts. I reimbursed myself for them post-working years. with my giant pile of money in my health savings account.
So that doesn't like whatever stay in that little HSA account.
It does. And that's the difference between flex savings account and health savings account. Flex stands for F this account, because this is the one that expires every December. This is the stinker.
Okay.
Use it, lose it.
That's what I've heard, and that's why I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yes, don't do it. Unless you have something reliable that you know you spend your money on. So if you are like receiving dialysis or something that you know you're going to spend all of that flex savings account, go for it. For those of us that our medical expenses are variable or based on an illness, like occasionally, the health savings account is so much more flexible. F this one, go with the health savings account.
I was reading about the HSA and they were saying that people invest the money in the HSA.
Yes. Again, personal preference. This is just me. I personally like to keep a balance in my HSA equal to my out-of-pocket max for the year, so that I know, God forbid, I have to pay for things, I've got a cash liquid. But money above that, I invest it. That's just me. What else? What is everybody else doing? Anybody? Okay. The reason I say that is, yeah. So with the health savings account, you put cash in, and once you have about $2,000 or so, Optum or whoever your health savings account is through sends you a notice that says, you have enough money, do you want to invest it? That's good for them, because then they get to use it as part of their like loan to value. So they want you to do that. I personally would prefer to keep a big chunk of cash in there equal to my annual out-of-pocket max for the family. So like if the shit hits the fan, I have $12,000 or whatever, which I never have because I have small children. We spend this thing like water. But if I could, I would keep the out-of-pocket max in there, and then I would invest the above that. But that's just me. Everybody does do their own thing. And again, when I invest it, I would go with the most basic, most diversified.
Kind of fun.
Yeah.
There we go.
And you just leave that investment there until you're gonna get on your golden yacht. And you-
Yes, until my golden yacht is ready. Exactly. So here are your contribution limits for this year. I think this one goes to $41.50 next year. This one probably goes to like, I don't know, $88,050, something like that.
You do have to keep your receipts and stuff. And I read that some people will keep them just like on the cloud. They'll like take a picture of.
That's absolutely what I
Yeah.
do. I have a Google Drive file called receipts.
Mhm.
And, you know, whenever you're at the doctor and you're sitting in that room for 45 minutes, buck naked, take pictures of your receipts.
Really?
Well, you know what I'm talking about. When you have to wear the little vest and you're waiting forever. Take pictures of your receipts. Not yourself. And throw them in your cloud.
So you can always converse up to whatever receipts you have.
For the reimbursement, yes. Yeah, because what you're saying is my health savings account was tax-free if used for qualified medical expenses. My qualified medical expenses include these visits to the doctor. The list of qualified medical
there's a lot of
expenses on the IRS website is delicious. It is enormous. It includes mole removal. It includes, yes, if your doctor sends it off to say, is it cancer? It counts.
What about therapy?
Yes, absolutely. Podiatrist, dental work, eye appointments, glasses, all of it, right?
And some over-the-counter stuff.
Tons of over-the-counter stuff. Yes, absolutely.
So, and hygiene products and like bandages and things like that?
I
Like,
think so.
I
We
wanna
have
say
to double
so.
check the list.
They did face masks too.
Oh, they did do face masks. Yeah, your COVID masks.
Yeah.
oh, I thought,
Oh, not like a sheet mask. No, no, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's in,
I've seen it for cosmetics.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
You can go, there's like a HSA store online.
yeah.
Yeah, and you can like look and see.
Well, and the IRS website has a great list of qualified medical expenses.
I see they, because on the self-service checkout, you can always see the.
I know, I love that.
I
Like
see them
CVS.
at like
I know.
HEB.
Even HEB, you're right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so to reiterate, the HSA comes with a debit card. You can spend it at the doctor. I do. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have enough money to pay out of pocket, do it. Keep your receipts, keep track. Reimburse yourself later in life when you don't have salary income, and live the high life on your golden yacht.
So you can keep the receipts that long.
Yes, ma'am. There is no expiration point on the receipts.
I tend to keep my receipts until, because I do the opposite of Casey, I invest every single dollar
Mhm.
I could possibly invest.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so then when the market's down 30% in 2022, I'm like, just gonna hang on to these receipts and wait until the market comes back.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
sell when the market's better to reimburse myself.
so when you're
Mhm.
investing, do you have to you have this amount of money, some of it is invested, some of it is saved to pay yourself back?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah,
there's a bank.
Yeah.
And a brokerage account. They're two separate accounts that are linked to each other, but one is at HSA Bank and one is at Charles Schwab, for example.
Mhm.
And there's a little portal between them. But
On my Optum website, it lists both of them together. It says like you have $2,000 in your account, $900 is invested.
So it's kind of like your company, like companies, they invest their money.
That's right. You're exactly right. Yeah.
So if you make good on your investments, say, are you still limited by what you can reimburse yourself for receipts?
Sort of. Only for tax-free withdrawals.
Okay.
So let me repeat
So,
that.
so that means if you make enough money, you'll just be taxed for any extra if you make it really good.
If you withdraw it before 59 and a half.
Oh.
If you withdraw it after 59 and a half, it's ordinary income, just like your tax-deferred IRAs.
Okay.
So it's definitely like, if you can afford to do it, there's a lot of upside. The life insurances, I love group life, accidental death and dismemberment. Both of those are usually free. Policies for other family members, okay. It's usually not that much money, so it's not always worth it. But it's also usually really cheap, so sure. The biggest question is, can you take it with you? And most of the time you cannot. So if you have a corporate life insurance policy and you're sitting with your financial advisor and I say, do you have life insurance? And they say, yeah, through work. I say, okay, but we're sitting here because you're planning to leave that job. So that's not really going to work here because you have dependents. So you really only need life insurance if people rely on your income. Don't really worry about life insurance if when you pass away, no one is hurt financially. Do you know what I mean? Okay, but for these, personal life insurance is super cheap. I do not sell life insurance. I'm not trying to sell you any life insurance. I would say look into it on the internet, and then it goes with you everywhere. Same thing with disability. Long-term versus short-term. Usually these are free at work. Should you get your own policy? It depends. If you were disabled, which is much more likely than dying, and it's going to cost you more money because you're going to have medical expenses, would you be able to take care of yourself? Most of us know. So as like a financial feminist, it really behooves you to look into long-term disability. Long-term disability covers you to age 65. And some of the policies like will even make a 401k contribution for you. For some industries, they will also increase the benefit without like reapplying. Like let's say you're a beginner doctor or something like that, and your salary is X. They're going to say, we will pay up to X times 6 or whatever, based on what your actual income is. So something to look at. And then the other thing that can be a little bit cheap too is if you do have this and you feel like you're never going to leave your firm, remember that at your corporate firm, they're going to pay 60% of your base salary. Again, for those people that get big commissions, remember it's base salary. But if they're going to cover 60%, you only need a policy to cover whatever the extra is in your personal expenses. It doesn't have to match what your real income was. If you're making $500,000 and you're living on $100,000, you don't need a $400,000 policy. You just need to cover your real life, right? Questions, internet questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple questions. So Julie's asking, I paid into short-term disability for about 6 months, but stopped. Is that money still there and available? I'd like to go back to putting money into short or long-term disability. Just can't afford to right now.
I would imagine it's not. Usually with insurance policies, when you stop paying, they disappear. Short-term and disability, again, I'm not an insurance agent, so somebody correct me if you have other opinions. I think the only thing it covers that's really useful is being gone for pregnancy. Has anybody ever used short-term disability where it's been helpful?
I've known people who used it when they had like a organ transplant.
Okay, that's kind of like a baby, so that works.
Yeah, or someone who had a stroke and until their long term kicked in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Short-term disability is usually super cheap because it is such a short window. It's like 90 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The long-term disability usually doesn't kick in until 90 days, but then it's good for a longer period, right? Long-term. So this one, if you're buying your own, maybe just have an emergency fund. If you're buying your own, I usually focus on long-term disability. Both of these are usually free at work. Question?
We have one more question here. Back to the high deductible health plans. Is there a certain income level where you should go onto a high deductible health plan? I like to go to the doctor a lot.
That's a really good question. And I don't know that it's a specific dollar of income. I think it's more like, does your cash flow afford for additional savings? Like if you're putting that $3,300 away, is that working in your monthly cash flow? Do you know what I mean? So to me, I would say if you can afford it, the high deductible plan is so much more flexible. It gives you so many options. I think it's worth it. I have 2 little kids. We have a high deductible plan. We do go to the doctor constantly. I was there 2 days ago, but I still think it's worth it. But that's just me. Anybody else have opinions that they want to share on that one? Okay, we can come back to it. I have had a lot of clients though who did the PPO simply because they're like, I don't want to think about it. I got too much shit on my mind. Like, okay, we can always come back to it next year at the same enrollment period.
Not unless you timed it out. I had a little heart thing go on, and I timed out my visit to January.
There you go.
And you have to they had to come up with the money. It was a few $1,000s. So I did do PPO, and I did the F plan. So, but I mean, I went through everything.
Yeah.
But it's because it was January.
Yeah.
Because originally I was looking at November, December, and I canceled the appointments that I was moved to January. So
smart.
You know,
I love it.
on that 1 year.
That is also why, like, the year that I had my kid in May was the year I got my hearing aid because I had met my deductible. I'm like, free money. Hearing aids are expensive. Okay, corporate double down. Investing in your your company's corporate stock. Does anybody do this already?
Won't do it.
Won't do it. Tell us why.
Company stocks is not good.
Not worth it.
No, it's absolutely not. It's just for my company. I'm
Internet?
not other people's company.
No, that makes sense.
Yep.
Internet, anybody investing in your company's stock? Maybe.
Yes, ESPP.
Yeah, okay. The benefits of doing this. The employee stock purchase plan is a 15% discount. If I work at Apple and Apple's trading at $500 a share, and I want to buy Apple stock at a discounted price, it makes sense, right? You do it per paycheck. This is one of those things you sign up during enrollment period and then they do it for the full year. However, you work at a company and you just bought more stock in that company. So you're kind of making yourself vulnerable. Stock options, take advantage of those. A whole nother slideshow because they are extremely complicated. I don't want to get into it too much, but the short version is inside of the 401k. That one I don't recommend. And the reason, again, personal preference, this makes you too vulnerable. Most 401ks have either a target date fund, they have a S&P 500 fund, they have something simple and diversified. Those make me feel more safe. I'm also a very boring investor. So talk to Sarah if you want something a little more sophisticated because I'm very boring. These two I love, and I'm pointing at stock options and the ESPP for the internet because you can liquidate both of these and then it's like getting free money. What I don't want to see is my 65-year-old client who has millions of dollars tied up in NVIDIA stock. He's a millionaire, but he also will not stop working because they keep giving him stock options. And then he lives and dies by the volatility of NVIDIA. Don't do this to yourselves. Don't do this to yourselves. Enjoy your life. Do this and it's like gambling, like have a set dollar amount, at which point you say, I'm over concentrated in my company stock. The rule of thumb is 20%. It might be more if you're super young or if you really love your company. It might be less if you're getting close to retirement or you can't afford to be that concentrated. And remember companies like WorldCom, which is like 25 years ago. You guys may not remember this one, but it went bankrupt. Enron, GE. GE seems like one of those companies that would always be there. And it's trash.
And
So
the other thing, your income is also coming from your company, so you
exactly.
don't want to have those two.
So when we
avenues
think
going
about
on.
that concentration, you have to remember they also pay your salary.
And also if you get laid off, you know, anymore. I mean, look at the PE ratio. I don't even have a PE ratio for my company. I mean, why would I?
Yeah.
It's not a good.
The only way I would do it is if you could get that 15% discount and then immediately sell it, like do a cashless exercise. And then
Oh, I
make
see.
your money.
That's what Tessa said, the exact thing. She said, for USPP, I typically sell it right away because our company likes
Genius.
to cut and run with 15% gain instead of holding its gain.
That's right. Yeah, so you can do a cashless exercise. Usually when you do this, they make you hold it for a certain amount of time unless you are willing to the day it like vests, that same day you hit the toggle button when you set up the plan that says, I don't want to hold it. As soon as it vests, sell it. No matter what the market price is, just sell it. So that, if you do that, then you're not like using insider information. That's where this is like, what's the reasoning for it, right? If you just have it preset, then they can never say that you were taking advantage of corporate intel, right? The same thing with these guys. You can set these ISOs in non-qualified stock options or RSUs. You can set all those up to sell at a certain moment. If you hold them once they vest and they turn into stock, you set yourself up for even more complications in taxes. Those may or may not be worth it. It's a very individualized conversation. Again, we can come back to that later. But the short version is usually if you're joining a new company and they really want you, they'll say like, we're going to give you a grant of blah, 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 number of shares. Okay. And then you get a grant for every anniversary you're there or every promotion or whatever. But with those grants, just have an exit strategy so that you don't get into the position where your entire net worth is tied up at the same place that you get your salary.
And is that gain or loss when you sell taxable?
Oh, yeah.
Taxable event? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for example, I have a client, she's been at Apple forever, and she's been receiving grants every quarter. So as we look at what we're going to liquidate to get her through the years between now and retirement, we're liquidating the most recent lots because of course the gain's a lot smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they qualified?
They can be. You can get an incentive stock option that's a qualified stock option.
When you saw the ESPP,
No, like a 401k, you mean?
I don't know, I don't have one, but like, because you said cashless, like exercise it immediately when they vest. Once it vests, is it a short-term gain or a long-term gain?
That's a really good question. And I believe, somebody correct me on this one, if you set it up for the cashless exercise, I think you get the long-term. Is that right? Tessa, do you remember? Tessa, are you getting a long-term capital gain if you do it immediately? We'll get some
Short-term
opinions.
gain.
Oh, short-term?
So you're fine. Okay.
Yeah, so you're getting ordinary income.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, 15%.
15% is a nice discount, especially if the capital gain's 15%, right?
Can you explain the term like vested? Do you mean that as like it's a holding period that you have a promise of?
That's exactly right. Yes. So let's say I join a company and they say, do you want to participate in our employee stock purchase plan? And I say yes. And so my paychecks are putting, let's say, like 5% of my paycheck towards this. But the holding period is, let's say, 6 months. After that initial 6 months, it's vested, and now I can sell it. The same thing with all of these stock options. Those are usually a longer hold. So that is basically bait to try and keep you at the company. And that's why they're always giving you new ones, because it's resetting that holding period. The holding periods for these is usually like, let's say 3 years. So after that initial 3 years, now like every quarter, you're getting new tranches of sellable stock. And the longer you're there, the more you have, because you have like a domino effect, right? The ones from the first grant, and then then there's a chunk from the second grant, yada, yada, yada. So this can become a huge source of income and a huge source of your net worth, but it's also a way to become very vulnerable to your stock price very quickly if you're not managing it. So, internet, any questions?
Mel has an interesting story. Mel
Yes.
says, I was in a company where in the past they required the 401k match to be in company stock. They changed it. I think it was illegal.
Yes. Yeah.
But some people got screwed when the company success dipped.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that may be illegal. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so before as Rachel leaves, we will hit you guys up, but if anybody is interested in a real estate investing subgroup, remember that face. She's probably going to be the point person. Excellent. See you later. Okay, reading the brochure. Let's skip to the brochure. Okay, as I say this, everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Who's received one of these things, or who has? Anybody? Okay, cool. Here's what it looks like. Can we go to the page 1, please?
Page 1?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's way over here.
Sorry.
Does that help?
Oh, nope. That's not it.
Cool. So usually you get one of these things where it says like benefits in brief, and there's usually a picture of somebody diligently enrolling. What we want to see is when you look at your table of contents, don't miss the stuff at the bottom. So this is all super important. We're going to get to complimentary benefits and discount programs. Fun fact, not fun fact. Gwen was helping me set this up, and I said something about the discount programs, and Gwen goes, yeah, we get those. Son of a bitch.
We have them too.
It's October. I didn't even know we had them. I'm so mad at myself.
Wait.
Right? I know.
We do. I use them for my pet insurance. Well, there is one for the pet insurance that I use.
I know.
Yeah.
Such good stuff. At my old firm, it was like Life Mart. Does anybody have Life Mart through their big ADP
That's the one that we
plans
have.
or anything? So they had a 10% discount at my daycare. So I got a daycare discount. Okay, so let's scroll forward in this make-believe person's plan. They talk about your eligibility. You have 30 days from your hire date, and then you have the open enrollment. Qualified life events are these: change in marital status, change in number of dependents, change in employment status. This is showing for the internet too, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then when you turn 65 or you become eligible for Medicaid, okay? Anybody have questions about what a qualified life event is? The basic version is this is when you can change your plan above and beyond being hired or this short open window, okay? Dependents, as long as they're under 26. Look at who this includes. Your children, adopted children, stepchildren. Maybe make this just a smidgy smaller. Dependents, people for whom you are a legal guardian, and the people for whom you have a qualified medical child support order, okay? So lots of people can be your dependents is the point. I think we're good here. So the medical, dental, and vision, this of course is the hot button. That's why it's the first one. Who does medical or who does dental and vision? Anybody that just automatically always chooses them? Yes. Thoughts? Anybody that doesn't? Yeah, I've gone back and forth as well. What is your motivation for not doing it? Yeah.
I didn't know. I get it.
Okay. So for the internet, if you didn't hear that, she was saying that on hers, dental and vision wasn't an option. The reason I have skipped dental was the out-of-pocket max, like the amount that they're going to cover, is like $3,000. So sometimes I've looked at it and it hasn't felt worth it.
The amount that I would be paying in premium,
Yes,
then I would just pay for like my visit that year.
I know.
It was less than, so.
Gwen, can you make this smaller so we can see these columns, please? So here is what I am trying to evaluate when I'm looking at one of these screens. Okay, so here's two examples. The Anthem Gold PPO and the Anthem Gold PPO 3000. So in these two, what's the difference? The difference is the amount of the deductible in network and the out-of-pocket max, okay? See these two numbers down here? That's kind of where I'm going if I'm looking at PPOs. If you scroll over, there's an HSA too. Oh.
This is the HSA, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, so this is a great example. So when we look at the deductible, $3,000 for a family, $6,000 for a family with the HSA. Is $6,000 in your budget? Then choose the HSA. So yes, it is double the PPO. I get that, but it has so many more bells and whistles. And look at the out-of-pocket max: $12,000 in the PPO, $10,000 in the HSA. So in that scenario where I have a baby and I have to go to 75 different lab appointments and everybody and their dog in the St. David's network sends me a bill, this is the number I care about. Your deductible is not going to matter because none of that stuff is going to count towards your deductible. I hate the insurance agent industry so much for how confusing and sucky it is. But to me, I always look at the out-of-pocket number because it's more important to me. But I'm also open to other thoughts. Anybody on the internet? Okay, cool. Thank you for pointing that out, Gwen.
Tessa says amen.
Amen. Yeah. Scroll on down. These are all just like the normal stuff. Out of network, doesn't really matter. Nobody actually works here. Let's keep going. Here's your dental programs. This is kind of what we were talking about. When you look at these different programs, how much are they going to cost? Annual deductible for these is $300, $150, $150. But look, the annual maximum benefit is only $1,000, $1,500 or $2,000. Has anybody had a root canal lately? Crown, I did. My husband had some dental implants put in.
Oh, yeah.
Guess what? That was not $1,000. That was $1,000. Unfortunate. So, if these are take it or leave it, frankly, to me.
And they won't cover it if they consider it to be cosmetic, so,
I know.
like, if you have to have a tooth pulled,
Yeah.
they won't cover the crown, so you don't have to have a tooth there.
Jesus. Yeah. One of Dave's, when he was having all of this work done, one of his old implants had like turned totally gray because it was like 30 years old. That was cosmetic.
This,
Do we
the
want-
other one have an implant on this tooth here, right in the front.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't cover it because it's cosmetic.
Delightful.
Thanks.
So let's look at those monthly premiums. Can we scroll up just a smidgy? Let me do this. So look, I mean, they're not a lot, but the whole employee plus family, it was $89 for the $1,000 coverage. How many months of the year are there? Let's do the math. It's ridiculous. Right, not worth it. I hate it. So anyway, that's just my personal opinion on dental insurance. Yes.
My brain is not remembering the difference between the deductible and out-of-pocket cost.
Hey, great question. The deductible is your visits to the doctor. The out-of-pocket max is anytime you have labs or you see some other specialist.
Imaging.
Imaging is the big one, labs is the big one. And they always are doing those to you whenever you go to the doctor. So those count towards your out-of-pocket max. They don't count towards your deductible. Most policies though, however much you spend on deductible does count towards the out-of-pocket max. Which is why in my head, I make it as simple as I can and just think about the out-of-pocket max.
Wait, isn't it the deductible, like you have to reach that limit for them to cover it afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
So then out-of-pocket, then
You have to reach a lot of.
Because a lot of the stuff that you have to have, just like medically, isn't going to count towards the deductible. So basically, if you hit that out-of-pocket max, you also get like free services above that. Yeah.
My price, like if you have a $6,000 deductible, it's 10,000 out of pocket max. Let's say that you hit, like this year, I hit my deductible, so I paid that $6,000. Now my company, my insurance company is paying the
The 80% and you're paying
So I'm
20.
still paying 20%, but I'm actually about to hit my out-of-pocket max, in which case I'll have like 2 weeks in December where everything's covered.
So you want low for both of them.
If you can.
If you can,
yeah.
I will.
So what do you have planned for those 2 weeks?
I'm getting a lot of cysts removed.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean,
Anything extra, just take it off.
yeah. If you think it might be a problem next year, do it now. Exactly. Okay. Let's keep on moving. So basically, the point about being able to read this is not that everybody needs to be an expert in it today, but also remember, if you can't read this, please go to your HR department and make them explain it to you. Okay? That's the only, with all due respect to HR, that is one of the few positive things HR does for us, other than like protecting the company, is that they help us understand this nonsense. So I approve it. I would like it. Vision, super cheap. Usually it doesn't pay for a whole lot, but it usually gets you like maybe contacts or glasses, right? Not bad. Totally worth it. Warby Parker's cheap.
If you can't read this, go get some glasses.
No, it's very small.
Yeah. The cool thing about HSAs is also that a lot of companies are doing a little bit of a contribution for you. So when you think about the contribution limit, if they do $38.50 for the limit, but your company's going to put $1,000 in, remember you can only do $28.50. Okay, just FYI. Okay, we have 30 minutes left. The flex savings account, great. Do it if you know that you have medical expenses. Here's my best friend, dependent care FSA. Who has dependents? Who has aftercare, daycare, summer camp, all of those things? This is my favorite because yes, I told you this is the FU plan. However, the only thing that we know for sure is how much our dependent care is going to cost. My daycare is $331.50 a week. I know it is. So if I put $5,000 away towards that, I know I'm going to spend the whole thing. If I put $5,000 into an FSA, in December, I'm running around buying a bunch of Band-Aids to try and spend it. Right? This one, I know for sure. This is not a ton of money compared to how much my daycare costs. But remember, it does cover elder care. So if one of your dependents is somebody that goes to memory care or has home health care, check out the website. See if those are things that maybe it would work for you. Most major corporations are going to offer this. If you are a small business or self-employed, look into getting it for yourself. It is not expensive. It is so cheap. At my old firm, we had 6 employees. I initiated this. I was the only contributor. It was totally worth it. Thoughts, questions, internet?
Julie's asking if you have a parent who gets sick, would this plan work for that?
No. A parent that gets sick?
Mm-hmm.
Is that parent your dependent? Most likely, Julie, no. Unless they're your dependent. But again, on the Dependent Care FSA website, there's a huge list of all of the stuff they pay for. They do not pay for like straight up nursing home, like premiums, but they pay for a lot of stuff. Okay, moving on. These cheap or free. Look at this one. For you, 5 times your salary up to $750,000. Absolutely do that. You bet. For your children, $10,000. Okay. Is it free? Then do it. If it's not free, what is the point? Disability insurance, voluntary AFLAC. That's a good way to think of it. This is the one with the, what is that guy, a goose?
Duck.
A duck.
A duck.
Thank you.
I think it's a duck.
60% of your salary, partial disability benefit, either 3 or 6 months. Great. Long-term disability. And also long-term disability will coordinate with Social Security disability. So be aware that you can have both. Okay, it's very confusing, but you can. Voluntary benefits, this is the like everything else page. This is the page I totally missed on our website. But here's a commuter benefit, cancer guardian, identity theft. This is where you're going to find your pet insurance, your daycare discounts. Definitely like scroll to the end, right? Use a highlighter, find the good stuff. Prepaid legal services, you get these a lot. There's usually like an EAP therapist, like so many visits to that. Pet plus prescriptions. Excellent. Accident, critical illness. So lots of really handy stuff. These are almost always totally free.
I've never seen them being free, but I've always seen them as available to pay.
Okay, that's a better way to put it. What I by free, I mean signing up for them is free. Thank you. But using them, you're absolutely right, will usually be discounted. Thank you for clarifying that. This one is like a LifeMart thing. This one's called Benefit Hub. This is where you would have found that daycare discount. Shopping, entertainment. This is basically like what is this? Like Chase Rewards? I don't know. That's so cool. They don't even work at Apple. Like, what is this? So cool. Yeah. Okay, and then here in her retirement programs, when are you eligible? You are eligible after 2 months. So if you start a new job, put a tickler in your phone's calendar for 2 months or whatever your own waiting period is so that you sign up as fast as possible. You want to get that money. How much can you contribute? She can contribute up to 90% of her salary or $22,500. So for those folks that make like, if you earn $40,000, you can't put $22,500 away, right? Or you can, but you're going to definitely need to subsidize it with something else. Then she has a Roth contribution. Will I get a contribution from my boss? Yes. 100% of her first 1%, 50% of the next 5%. Okay, this is stupid. Just read that as 100% of 2.5, right? Like, why do they make it so complicated? Anything you put away, there is no vesting schedule. What your employer puts in, there is a vesting schedule. Again, this is a handcuff to keep you there for a few years.
Not every company has that though. Many companies, like you'll vest their contribution right away.
Mm-hmm. I've never worked at those companies, but I have heard that. Everywhere I've worked, it's been at least 2 years.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like I rarely come across that. Most companies are immediate vesting on the employer contribution.
On the employer?
Smaller. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I'm self-employed now. All right, how do I enroll? Usually they have a website, Transamerica. Net Benefits is the easiest, in my opinion. Vanguard, ADP, there's a million of them. So I don't have slides for the backdoor conversation, so we will just mentally picture it together. And the mental picture is, can we go back to the key financial data, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on it.
Yes, let me just,
Yeah, this is right where I want it. Perfect. Okay, so just to start, remember that when you are making an individual retirement contribution, you are only eligible for a Roth contribution if your income is below 228,000 AGI as the joint married filing jointly, or 153,000 if you are filing as either single or head of household. This dash between 138 to 153 or 218 to 228, this is called the phase out period. You can still put money away, you just can't put the full 6,500 away, okay? The point is, every citizen is eligible to put money into a non-deductible traditional IRA. Every citizen, there's no income limit, right? You can put $6,500 away as long as you say, I'm not planning to take the deduction. That $6,500, once put in here, can then be converted to the Roth account, not a tax event. You didn't get a deduction in the first place. How can you do that and not like be overly complicated? You can't have any other traditional IRAs. So if you have an old rollover IRA sitting around, then that's going to complicate things, and only part of this conversion is going to be tax-free. So picture this on a grander scale in the mega backdoor at work. I think earlier my pretend number was 30,000, right? So if I put 30,000 away in the post-tax non-deductible chunk, then I immediately convert it to Roth. I have now put my employee contribution of 22.5 plus my extra 30,000 into the Roth account. Does that make sense?
So you have to have a traditional IRA.
No, I'm sorry. I'm pointing at this because I'm trying to kind of tie these back to the ideas of the pre-tax Roth and post-tax.
Yeah, I guess
Portions.
I haven't seen the post-tax option.
Okay.
So if someone had it,
Mm-hmm.
so there would be a way through net benefits or something to put an additional lump sum?
No, it's per paycheck.
Oh, per paycheck.
It's always per paycheck when it's a 401k.
Okay.
Which is why you have the calendar year end as your like deadline,
Okay.
because everything is per paycheck in that calendar year.
So per paycheck, post-tax, there's this after-tax contribution, and it can immediately be converted into
Yes.
a Roth IRA.
Yes, inside the 401k. So it's
like
still
additionally into the 401k.
into the Roth 401k. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Huh.
And so it's a little, from what I have seen on the Apple one is the one I'm picturing at the moment. So there's like a square up here, contribution amount for pre-tax, then there's a square for post-tax. There's sometimes like regular salary and bonus, like two different boxes. And then at the bottom, there's one for post-tax, salary post-tax contribution, bonus post-tax contribution. And then below those squares, there's a radio button that says, do you want to do a Roth conversion immediately? And the answer would be yes. But again, it's based on your own 401k plan's eligibility.
Yeah, but it's like, so you get an additional contribution to your 401k.
Yeah, but it's your money. It's your salary that you're contributing.
Yeah,
But yes, up to 66,000.
it's the same overall limit, right?
Yeah, the 66,000. Yeah.
Huh.
But you know,
I think at my company, it had a place where you could say, this contribution you're about to make, you could post-tax, you could say yes.
But
I never saw
that's just
anything
raw.
for the back door. Now, my company had a different drop down that actually said, you want to do post-tax traditional. If I'd already maxed out, like on my.
yes, exactly. If you've already maxed out.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, and they're not at every company. That mega backdoor conversion is not at every company, but it is at most of the software companies.
So it's, what's the post-tax contribution without the Roth conversion?
Then it's you putting more money into a tax qualified account, but then you're going to have to pay taxes on it when you make a withdrawal.
Oh, it's just, so it's the same thing, it's just Roth.
It's just going to grow tax deferred as long as it's invested.
So it's basically as long as you're willing to contribute extra into the no penalty, so long as you leave it there until you retire, essentially.
Right.
Then,
Yeah.
then you,
But then you're going to pay ordinary income tax when you make that withdrawal.
even if you do the conversion?
No.
I'm saying if you do the mega,
Oh, yeah, definitely do the mega. If you can, the mega is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, love
And
it.
the way I'm envisioning it too is with any non-deductible traditional contribution, whether to an IRA or a 401k. If you let it sit there without converting it, you're creating like an additional layer of complexity because you have to keep track of what went in, like without the deduction, and then the taxation of the earnings. Those are
They do
taxed
keep them
in different
separate.
ways,
Yeah.
right? Like the non-deductible contribution would be tax-free when you took it out, but the earnings would be taxable.
Yeah, it's a huge pain.
You wouldn't want to do it and then not.
Yeah, I'm saying
Convert,
the
right?
only reason off would be conversion.
Right.
But yeah, so as long as you're fine with that money being away, like.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of money. So this really is a good choice for high earners.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, like,
But
remember this.
I didn't see any way to do it if your I didn't know that it would just be another button, but if your company doesn't offer that, I didn't see a way to do it easily, but to avoid the tax.
No, that's a good point. If your company doesn't offer it, there's really no way to do it until you separate service.
Okay.
And when you terminate at that company and you're doing your rollovers, that's when you would be defining what is non-deductible contribution, what is Roth contribution, what is pre-tax. So all of those are going to go into different holding accounts when you leave the company.
So is there an option during rollover to like throw in a lump sum at that point or something? No. Then, so it's like if your company doesn't operate, you kind of can't do the backdoor.
If they allow you to do the post-tax,
Well, they don't have that.
okay, then no. Yep. Okay. Yes.
A few questions. Tessa's asking, do you all recommend doing backdoor Roth 401k and backdoor IRA if our budget allows?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything you can put into a Roth account, I would highly recommend doing it.
Another question, if you're maxing out your 401k contributions and doing the backdoor IRA, is that good enough for tax efficiency?
I mean, yeah, if that's what works in your budget, sure. That's a lot of money. That's like $30,000. Way to go. I'm very proud of you. Seriously, like every dollar you can put into these things, life is expensive. Just do what you can. And remember that like our biggest benefit is time. Like this is what Sarah's always putting on the boards, right? That time value of money. Every dollar that we put away, positive or negative market scenarios, is probably earning dividends. If you turn that dividend reinvestment button on, it is doing its job without us. And then we just check in 10 years later, and we have a golden yacht. Or maybe we can afford a new tooth. It really depends on how much we were putting away in the first place. There's a big difference between golden yacht money and dental implant. Okay, thoughts, questions? I think that was kind of the end of my prepared remarks, but I'm certainly open to conversation on, there you go.
So if you have some time, then I'm still curious about the complexity of choosing the HSA path.
Yeah, tell us more.
Because, well, when I told you, like, I'm all about simplicity, right?
Yeah,
It's true. Meaning to try it, but every time I roll with Tom's, I put a reminder on my calendar. It's like,
yeah,
switch this year. And I've been here 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Because ours is odd, like, or I don't know if it's when I signed up or something, but no, it's all of us. It's a summer time. It's middle of the summer is our benefit. So it's because it's limited to going up to 4,000 essentially, right? And it's tax deferred, but you have to keep track of receipts to get the reimbursement, which is the tax.
No, that's a great point. Let's put a pin in it right there.
Okay.
So keeping track of the receipts is only necessary if you're never going to use your debit card. If you're never going to use that $3,000 just to pay regular qualified expenses, for me personally, because I'm spending it as soon as I get it, I'm not keeping those receipts because there's no money. Because I'm paying for kids amoxicillin like every 6 weeks.
Okay, so
but
therapy qualifies, right?
Yes,
so
therapy absolutely qualifies.
Spend it all the way down.
Then you're paying for therapy tax-free.
Just tax-free therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it. If you have the cash flow that you can afford to pay for your medical expenses out of pocket.
Yeah.
And keep the $3,000 in there.
Right.
The reason to keep all those receipts is in this story where you have that kind of money. Then when a few years later, you can reimburse yourself for previous expenses that you did not reimburse yourself when you bought them.
So like pay for therapy.
Yeah, you pay for 2023 therapy in 2030 and possibly you don't have other income at that point. And so you can live off of that money that you've been setting aside every year.
And even like what about the gains off of investment? You can still use that.
Absolutely, because you're paying for qualified medical expenses.
For therapy.
You're reimbursing past Leora with future Leora's money.
Okay. And they let you grow it too. So it's
Definitely.
So it's like it's pre-tax, right?
It is.
So it's like no tax money.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, so
as long as you're using it for qualified medical expenses, it will always be tax-free.
So it's better than a Roth because you don't pay any taxes going into it.
True. Yeah.
So it's better than Roth. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if we are ranking, I'm going to say from a tax perspective, 401k because it's the biggest chunk,
Mhm.
HSA because yes, it is pre-tax, and then Roth. But that's very individualized.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then also in this scenario, future Leora doesn't need the money still.
Mhm.
If you wait until after 59 and a half, now you can withdraw those dollars for just traditional IRA usage. It doesn't have to be qualified medical. Yes.
Should we be shopping around HSAs to like compare fees and?
Not for me. I mean, yes, if you want to. I don't think
But
there's,
generally, whatever the company gives you is probably fine.
especially if it's something fairly standard like Optum or HSA Bank. Yes, ma'am.
And along that line, like what if you're planning on quitting your jobs?
Oh, great question. So we have had the same Optum account through like 7 jobs. So it really isn't tied to your particular company. But sometimes when they make a match for you, they may want to put it in a different bank. So for example, my husband went through like 6 companies in a 10-year span for whatever reason. And at one point we had Wells Fargo. So I just made sure that with that debit card, we spent all of the Wells Fargo. But the Optum, 2 out of like 4 of the companies he worked for used Optum. So we just kept using the same Optum account, right?
That money doesn't.
It does not. It stays there, exactly. And now I have a high deductible health plan on which I get to pick my own HSA custodian. So instead of opening a new one, I'm just using that little Optum.
Can you reimburse yourself for past medical expenses that you had before you opened your HSA account?
Great question. No, you have to have incurred them in years that you have the health savings account or after. Now, in a situation where you know that you're going to have a lot of medical expenses and you want to be on a PPO plan for whatever reason, or you change jobs and you know that you're not going to be there forever, but maybe you only have a PPO option, that health savings account kind of freezes. You can't make contributions if you're not on a high deductible plan, but you can spend it. Does that part make sense?
Wait, is it that you can spend on expenses incurred in years when you had a high deductible health plan or when you had a health savings account?
The health plan.
Okay,
The health savings account is just if you actually saved the money up,
yeah,
but you don't necessarily have to have saved the money up as long as you had the high deductible plan that year.
Okay.
You can't initiate a health savings account without a high deductible health plan. But in subsequent years, if you work somewhere that only offers a PPO and you've got a bunch of cash sitting in your HSA, you can still spend it. It doesn't matter.
So does that mean, so for the reimbursement side, you're limited basically to reimbursing up to how much you spent on qualified expenses in the period that you had high deductible plan?
That's exactly right. Out of pocket.
It stops,
Mhm.
like, so.
Yeah, but for most of us, if you look at what we spend on medical, it's a lot, especially over a certain amount of time. So if this is like part of your FIRE plan, which is what a lot of our clients have done, they're maxing out their contribution and paying for everything out of pocket, keeping all their receipts, especially if you have multiple people in a family, that dollar amount really, really grows. Excuse me. So like dental implants this year, I think we spent $7,000 on that. It was outrageous. Babies, it's so much money. Like everything is expensive. So it really adds up. And then when you reimburse yourself for that out of pocket in the future, you're going to be happy.
But at worst, you just get tax-free money to pay, and if you spend it all, then.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. The worst case scenario is all my doctor visits are tax-free. Worst case scenario.
So when you're paying, right, so if you're paying for your doctor's visit now, and then they're gonna reimburse you through basically just the tax. So right now I'm paying for my doctor's visit, which includes tax. In the future, when I reimburse myself, I'm giving myself that tax too.
Mm-hmm. The whole amount, absolutely.
Whoa. Okay, so you're getting the tax money. Really.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if your bill for your copay is, $300 and $12 of that was tax or whatever, which I don't know if there is tax on that, but whatever the total amount was, if you paid it out of pocket, you reimburse yourself for that receipt. Yeah. Internet, any questions? Any stories you guys want to tell us? Good.
You guys gonna be HSA buddies now?
Okay. So the only thing is, any other like fun stuff that people have seen at a work benefit? I think what we had on the internet was somebody got free cell phones. We do get that one fairly often.
I didn't know we had the Apple Play.
That's awesome.
Accidentally, I was at the Apple store. It was when I first started. And I was just like, this job requires me to have a phone that works.
Mhm.
And they were really working. I told them, and they were like, oh, we actually have a plan with them, so I got a discounted rate.
I also learned this year that we have like a relationship with a covered parking lot at Austin.
Sweet.
Whoa.
Covered parking, internet. That's what we heard. Dell will pay $5,000 towards an annual financial plan. Just FYI.
We have benefits towards.
Yeah.
Benefits for healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy living.
Yeah.
That's right.
Certainly look into all of those. And if there's anything and you have like an HR department, just ask them if they can add it. Because so frequently, these are things where they're like, okay, if enough people ask them for it, they add it.
We could ask for fertility services.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Indeed doesn't. I know. But I had a girlfriend that she had to go through like 5 rounds of IUI before Kaiser Permanente would pay for an actual harvest. So
Wow.
it seems like a lot of.
Curious how that works too if you leave. Like you better.
That's exactly what happened to her. Yeah. And so she had to cover the rest of the expenses. Yeah. So that's that. The end. Friends, anybody have questions? Sash, do you have questions? Just kidding. Come on in, guys. We're done. All right, Internet, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please send them in the chat or on the Meetup questions thingy, and we'll get back to you. The end. Cool. Well, thanks you guys for coming in person.
Thanks, Kacie.
More Butterfingers, as you know.